Hi, everybody. In our last exercise, we created some folders on our web server. If you're not already logged in, please go back to your web server, go back into public HTML, and go into the folder that you saved with your last name. The directory is empty. I'm going to show you how to code directly on the web server. This generally is not considered to be the best practice, but I don't want to teach you how to use the integrated development environment that is best practice today. I just want to give you some background on what HTML is, where it comes from, and how you're going to use it. So I'm going to create a new file, and when we create a HTML file, or an HTML website, we name the first page that you click on, which will show up by default, index.html. And that should be all lowercase, and it should not have any spaces. You should never have any spaces or capital letters in your file name. That's our style guides, and we'll get more into that later. Now, once I've created it, and this is actually live on the web, but it would be blank right now. But we can go in here and we can edit it, and I'm going to use the HTML editor, and I'm going to select edit. HTML is derived from word processing software like Word, or if you're really old, WordPerfect or Google Docs. They all have something running behind them called SGML, which is Standard Generalized Markup Language. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and hypertext is your links. You can click on it and it will take you somewhere. That's hypertext. But you're going to notice that this environment looks a lot like a very simple word processor. So anything that you can do in word processing, we can do pretty much in code. Now, we're not going to get much into styling now. We use two languages to create and style our web pages, and we need two separate web languages. One is for the content and one is for the format, and that allows us, as we move forward, to create formatting specific to the platform that we're working on. So if we're creating it for our cell phone, it's going to have a different style than if we're creating it for a laptop. And we will offer multiple styles. The computer browser will detect how wide the screen width is, and we'll pick the styles based on that. So anything that we can style, you can see this stuff is here. We can do superscript, subscript, bold, italic. So I'm going to create just a simple, and this is your traditional programming first thing that you would program in any programming language, and that would be hello world. Now in here, I am not actually in the HTML editor. I'm in a rich content editor, which means it's like working in Word, but it's creating source code, and we can go to the source code by doing this. So this gives us the basic HTML, and it's adding some other stuff in here that we don't actually need. My Grammarly integration, which I do not need. So you might or might not get the extra stuff, but what needs to be here is text inside of triangular brackets. That's our opening tag, and tags normally occur in pairs. So we'll have an opening and a closing tag. And then we have two sections to every page. We have the head, which has information about the page, and then we have the body, which has the information that's going to appear on the screen. And so the title, which I will just make Hello World, is what appears in your tab up at the top. So I can save this. And we have made our first web page. And then we can go and we can test it. So I can go into my CastPrac folder. We see Hello World. And if you want to view source code on a web page, you choose View Page Source. This we can't edit, but we can see the source. So we can and will go further in this. We're going to do a little bit more. We're going to be able to add some additional code here. So in here, I want you to add and hand code this even though you could do it the other way, your whole point in being here is to learn how to do the hand coding. And so we're going to put in your name. Use your name, don't use mine. And we're going to add a little bit of style here. Now, I'm going to teach you about 3 places to put styles. This is not actually the ideal place, but we can do it. It's discouraged. We usually prefer to have an external style sheet. I just want to show you that we can. So we can put in style equals text align center, font weight bold. And when I go back, so you can see that we have options. This would be how we'd center it. This would be how we'd bold it. And we're going to have tags that correlate to those options. So I can go back here and you can see it's center and bolded. So whenever you're working in word processor, you're actually generating a SGML document. HTML is similar but not identical. But that sort of gives you an idea of what it's capable of. If you can do it in Word, chances are pretty good we can replicate it using a combination of HTML and CSS. So I'm going to ask that you hand this in, and you can play with it some more. And if you want to add some additional things, you can just test them this way, because this is a good way to learn how to do things. So I can change it back to left aligned, and I can say, my favorite band is Queen. That's probably way too old for most of you, but I can highlight this. It's currently bold. I can click that again. That should make it, I want it to not be bold. Hoo-hoo, it's not doing it. That's where I like to be able to get in and change things. So we can change our font. We can change our font size. We can highlight it. And you'll notice they're not all working, which I find interesting. We'll get into the source code and see if we can figure out why. So again, it's added this Grammarly stuff, which I don't actually want. And this is why I don't like doing this. I don't want to add things. But you'll notice that it's created an additional, in addition to the paragraph, we've got our font weight of bold. Then we have span class equals marker. So it's making it more complex than it should, but it's doing spans, which is just a region of code that can be in a paragraph, but you can see some of the things that it's doing. So it's got extra styles in here. And what I'm trying to show you is that this is how I could tell if you were going to use that editor versus hand coding. And I want you to hand code for the most part. For this exercise, you can try it both ways and just see the difference. But hand coding is a lot cleaner and it doesn't put as much garbage, and it's easier to fix. Like the bold wouldn't go away because I was trying to get rid of something that was in the span, whereas here, if I got rid of the paragraph style and go back, it's no longer bolded. So sometimes things will break when you're using this interface, but you can fix it in the code. So that's just to give you an introduction to what hand coding looks like. Please play with it a little bit, add a few sentences, add some of the styles either here. You don't have to worry about hand coding on the styles. Now just try some of them, look at it, and see what it's doing. That gives you sort of an idea of how the hand coding is going to work.